Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify Nation. And if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at iOS image management. We'll be discussing managing Cisco iOS images, TFTP servers as a backup location, backing up the iOS image with a TFTP example, copying an iOS image example, and finally, we'll look at the boot system command. This episode is part of my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. As your network grows, you are going to want to start storing backups of your configurations, of your iOS images, the operating systems on your routers and switches. You're going to want some backups of those. You can use a TFTP server to do that. Set up a central TFTP server, you can back it up. This helps to control the number of iOS images you have, the reversions of those, the different versions of those images. To either back up those images or to upgrade those images, you need a couple requirements. First is you need a PC with PuTTY and a TFTP server. One of the most common ones out there, it's free, it's called TFTP D64. So TFTP daemon for 64-bit. This is a free TFTP server you can download to your PC, connect it in there. Download it before you start this process on your PC. Then you need console connections and Ethernet cables. What you're going to do is connect your PC directly to R1. You are going to then console in to R1 from your PC. When you do that, you're going to set up a minimal network. You're going to set the IP address on your PC to one address. You're going to set the IP address on your router to another. In this example, on R1, we're using 192.168.0.1. And then the PC, we're keeping on the same network, so 192.168.0, but then we have to give it a different host number, so .10. Two IP addresses in the same network address family, but unique identifiers. So you're going to have to set that up. And then you're going to need the Cisco router and then the iOS image. So if you're restoring the image or if you're upgrading it, those are our requirements of what we need. First thing here is to open up a PuTTY connection. So open up PuTTY. You can do this also in TerraTerm. And we select our serial connection. This is our COM port. This is that console connection into our device. Once we're consoled in, you can hit enter, verify that we are in our device. You have to do some configuration on the Windows side. Turn off your firewall. Now, I understand not good practice to turn off your firewall, but once again, you created a small network with the router and your PC, and that's it. Hopefully, the router doesn't have a virus that's going to infect your PC. You're not on the internet. You're not on your corporate network. You're just on that little network, so turning off your firewall should be okay. Go into your Windows settings, look for Windows Firewall, turn off everything. You want everything here in your Windows Defender firewall to be red, meaning there's a problem. So you want your firewall off. That's just going to make this whole process a little bit easier as we take our next couple steps. After you have your IP addresses set up, it's good to ping from the router to the PC to, one, make sure your IP addresses are configured correctly, and two, that the firewall is off and you can actually get the ping from the router to the PC and the return trip. Just a simple ping here, and this is from R1, and we're pinging the IP address of the PC. Here you can see all 5 were 100% successful. That lets us know that when we need to connect into the TFTP server on the PC, it should work. On your PC, we're going to go ahead and start our TFTP server. But before we do that, you have to store that image file on the computer. Right here, we have Windows Explorer opened up. We have the folder that TFTP is in. Created a separate folder here that says TFTP folder. This could be TFTP storage or something like that. Go into that folder and put your image in there. Because when you start TFTP, it's going to ask you what subfolder, and our subfolder, so from where you're running the exe, what's our subfolder of where our image is stored. So go into that subfolder, copy your image into that folder. So now this image, the image is for a 1900 Universal K9. It ends in a bin. It's a binary file, and it's in this folder location. You want your image file in there. Also, while you're there, copy this file name, because you're going to have to enter it in a couple times. And if you copy it and put it into your clipboard, it's just easier to paste it at that point. So go ahead, copy the file name, including the extension, including the .bin, copy it onto your clipboard. Once you have that, let's go ahead and start your TFTP server. So go ahead, double click on the TFTP server. When TFTP starts up, you should get a window that looks like this. First thing you want to do is go into the settings. The settings button is located down here on the bottom center. Go ahead and click on the settings button. Brings you into the TFTP settings window. We want to make sure that this directory listed here is the directory where you stored that image file. This is the file here. This is the sub file we just created. You want to confirm that it's there. If it's not, go ahead and click on Browse. Opens up a Browse window. You can navigate to wherever that folder is. Once you find the folder where it's located, once again, it was TFTP-folder, go ahead and click OK, and that should propagate the correct folder location in here underneath base directory. Next thing we have to do is bind our IP address. Down here in the settings window, right here where it says bind TFTP address, make sure the box is checked here, and then make sure this is the IP address you set. If it's not the IP address you set, click the drop down and select the correct IP address. I hope you're liking this episode on iOS image management. If you have the time, please leave a comment and let me know what you think about iOS image management. You can also visit my website at KevTechify.com for all of my details and how to get these episodes in video and podcast form. Once you have the correct address in here, go up onto the DHCP tab. On the DHCP tab here, what we need to do is underneath DHCP options, make sure that the default router is the IP address of the router itself. That's the device, that's R1, that's the device we're going to upload the image to. Now, technically, you don't have to do this, but if you don't have this field filled out, TFTP is just going to sit there and yell at you and pop up all sorts of warnings. So this just takes care of one headache. Also confirm that we do have the correct subnet mask in here. When everything is done, click on the OK button on the bottom of the TFTP settings window. It's down in this area. You'll get a pop-up saying the DHCP pool is empty. You don't have your DHCP server set up. That's perfectly fine because we don't need to run a DHCP server with our TFTP server. So this warning is fine. Go ahead and click on OK and verify our settings. Make sure that the correct directory is listed here, especially the subdirectory where our image is located. Make sure we have the right IP address listed for the PC, the device we're running TFTP on. That way the TFTP server binds to this IP address. Back on the router, we're going to check our current version. We issue a show flash command. The current version of our iOS here is C1900 Universal KNMZ SPA.154-3.M2. This right here, the 154-3, that's the important part. So I'm going to go ahead, write that down. I make a note of that. 154-3. When we have our current version, we can then copy the file. To copy the file, we use the copy command, and it's the same process. It's where is it from and where is it going to. So it's from and to. We're copying it from TFTP and we're copying it to flash. So copy TFTP flash. When you hit enter, it's going to ask what the IP address is of your TFTP server. which is the IP address of your PC. Go ahead and type that in, hit enter. Then it's going to ask you for the name of your file. Because this was done once already, the default is our file name. But remember how you copy the file name to the clipboard? What you can do is when your cursor is right here, just right click will paste that file name in here for you. It'll paste it in, that way you don't have to type it all in. But if you didn't have it, then you'll have to type it in. It takes you an extra minute. When you type it in, or when you get your file name in there, you're going to say, what do you want it to be when you copy it to flash? What's the destination file name? You're going to keep it the same. You should keep it the same. At this point, you can go ahead and hit enter. When you hit enter, it's going to start copying it. First thing it does here is it accesses the TFTP server at the IP address, and then here is that file name. Once again, notice how the subdirectory isn't here, but the file name is. That's why we had to make sure that directory was set correctly. Then it's going to say we're going to start loading our image file from our TFTP server, and you're going to start getting exclamation points. As it loads in some information, it's going to give you an exclamation point, and it's going to continue giving these exclamation points. When you're done, you're going to have a whole bunch of exclamation points here. It's going to say, okay, you copied this many bytes. So here's your bytes, and it took 124 seconds. It took a little over 2 minutes to copy that file up. We have nice confirmation saying everything worked. If you didn't get that, go back and just do that copy TFTP flash command again. Next, I verify that the image was loaded up correctly. Doing a show flash here, because we uploaded it to flash, we're going to see we now have two files. One is the original file, that was the 154-3, and our new file is the 157-3. We have two of these files that have been uploaded. The sizes, those are looking right. After we do that, we need to then tell the router to boot the new image file. How we do that is from global configuration mode. Right here we have global configuration mode. Then we say boot system. Where is that stored? We're storing it in flash, and then we give it the file name. And because we copied it into our clipboard on our PC, we can, when the cursor gets right here after you type your colon, you can right click again and it'll type the file name in for you. If not, you just look up above, type it in, you're good to go. Once you've told it what image file to boot, the new one, save your configuration. Do a copy run start. Here we did copy CO and then PY run start. We had a system update that came in there. Once again, if a system update appears, it doesn't interrupt your typing. You can just continue typing. It says what do you want the destination file to be? Startup config. Go ahead and hit enter. It's going to build the configuration and save it. So we did a copy run start. We saved our new configuration. The one where it says the boot system is pointing to that new image file. Go ahead and reboot your router. How we reboot the router is we say reload. It'll give you a couple warnings if you have any. Here we have a security K9 issue. This is probably why we're updating our image. Typed in reload, hit enter, and they're going to ask you proceed with reload. This is the are you sure you want to confirm it? Go ahead, hit enter. System's going to go ahead, reboot, log in, do a show version. When we do a show version, it's going to list out what software we loaded. Right here, we loaded from Flash. This is our information. And this is the new version number. Once again, the old one was 154-3. The new one is 157-3. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on iOS image management. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on enterprise networking, security, and automation for the CCNA. I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.